What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the OA News Overtime Podcast, special Zoom edition. I'm Justin Lee. This is Adam Cole. Adam Cole.
Hello.
Adam, we're here because as Auburn is already in Oregon, they're out there, and we're getting set to preview the big super regional matchup, Auburn and Oregon State. And Adam, we have a guest.
We do.
Adam talked to who'd you talk to, Adam?
I talked to Les Gehrett, the sports editor of the Corvallis Gazette-Times, just a little bit, kind of about the weekend. We'll be throwing to that here in a bit, but he's been covering that team all year, and I will say this much: I was someone who all weekend of the Auburn Regional was like, well, if they end up facing Oregon State, I have done no background work, and so I tell you what, he was pretty insightful, but. No, it'll be, I think, just in a bit of background work I have done since the end of the Auburn Regional, I think it's going to be a really interesting weekend. I think it'll be kind of a litmus test, if you will, for just the I guess the quality of this year's Auburn team. Because you think about it, and they lost the series to number 1 Tennessee. They lost the series to an Ole Miss team that was ranked number 1 in the country when they played them.
Sure.
They lost the series to number 3 Oregon. Or no, not number 3 Oregon, excuse me, number 3 Arkansas.
Yeah. A little different.
And this Oregon State, a little bit, just about a whole country different. But this Oregon State team's number 3 in the tournament, and I'm pretty sure they held a top 10 ranking for like basically all of the year. There was one poll where they were like 21 at the start, and so I think if Auburn makes it out of this, I think it says a lot about where they are as a team. And especially, I mean, Justin, you had kind of alluded to it, but I think you'd kind of mentioned that them going to this super regional feels a lot different than 2019.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because 2019, they went to a regional to Georgia Tech right down the road. Mm-hmm. And then the super regional was at North Carolina. But yeah, I mean, I figure they were seeded worse because they didn't even host their own regional then. Yeah. And I don't know if that team would have survived a cross-country trip like this. So to go cross-country like this, I don't know. I think for Auburn, it seems like it's going to be difficult. But at the same time, you kind of just hope that the meat grinder pays off for you. The fact that you've played, you hope that the SEC, which was billed to be such a good conference, you hope that is proven true. And, maybe all of a sudden, we'll see what Oregon State's got. But I don't know. As far as what you've seen, I mean, they're good at the plate, right? They draw a lot of walks.
Yeah, they're really
throw strikes.
They're really disciplined at the plate. And Jacob Melton leads the team in like home runs and RBIs, kind of I guess you could argue he's their designated slugger. But in talking to Les, you'll hear it in a bit. He was kind of like, I don't know that I would necessarily say he's their best guy at the plate. He kind of pointed to Garrett Forrester, who's their first baseman, and who kind of has a power aspect to his game, but I think has more walks than strikeouts this year. So that'll be something to watch, just kind of top to bottom. They're, I think, pretty consistent. And then Cooper Jerpy is their number 1 starter. Dick Hauser. Cooper Jerpy with the H.
Nice.
But he'll be a big test really this weekend and I guess Saturday night. We've got a couple things. Well, we've got a little more on him in this Zoom podcast that you'll hear from Les, and then we've also got an article tomorrow in the paper that'll kind of highlight Jerpy and just kind of what makes him as good as he has been this year. But those will be.
It is 68 degrees in Corvallis right now.
I was telling Les, that sounds really nice.
Dude, what if we just lived in Oregon? I mean, come on.
Why not? Let's do it.
But they got trees. All right. I could screen share, but I'm not gonna. I'll just Google searching Corvallis.
Google searches Corvallis.
What a weird
screen here.
What a time. And then I think football played Oregon State one time. And I think Fergie looked at it and he was like, the only cursory glance, the only Auburn at Oregon State he could find was some volleyball game in 2004.
Right.
These are two schools that just play and don't play each other. And but I mean, I don't know. You kind of see you see the resemblance, I guess. The Oregon State, Alabama, Auburn. I think Auburn has kind of a kindred spirit with the Michigan States and maybe some schools like this. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
This weird statue.
I think it's interesting too because it's like Oregon State, at least of late, has been a very good baseball program. I don't know that you would historically call them one of the dominant ones, but I mean, they won a national title in 2018.
Yeah.
So this is a team that's not far removed from that kind of success. And I was impressed last weekend with Butch Thompson's ability to evade the question of Florida State. Because he always kind of had the same answer, which was just like the excitement of having Florida State and UCLA here as these two sort of, big historically dominant programs.
Right.
And now it seems like there's going to be another one that they could potentially add to the list of like, oh yeah, we've beat them this weekend against Oregon State.
Right.
So that's another angle to it, I suppose.
Adam,
not a massive one, but
Adam, what if I told you that Auburn has played this season the last 3 national champions? Wow. What a stat. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Oregon State. 2020 is canceled due to COVID. The last 3 national champions, all on Auburn's schedule. Did not play Florida, who won in 2017.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
How about that, huh?
The SEC, man.
What a row, a rogues gallery, if you will, for your Tigers. So, hey, man, we'll see, and we'll let's wrap this up and pitch to your interview. But when you got to win 2 out of 3. You're going to Omaha. It's a big deal. That'd be a banner moment for the program. Let's see. This weekend we got some late games.
But
we'll have it on the site. If you're listening to this, you can just as easily find our stuff. But yeah, late games. We'll both be up late. So
yeah.
Sunday night. That's a school night, man. People are gonna be, but keep it coming. Just OAnow.com. Monday morning, wake up. Boom, boom. Figure out what happened. We'll let you know. Other than that, we'll see if game 3 is a reasonable time or not. But dude, West Coast time is crazy. I was there when I was in Vegas and I was in there. I was like, dude, I can't do this for I don't know.
Well, it was nice because I talked to somebody this morning for that Jerpy story in Portland, and I was telling him, I was like, I had gotten up at like 10 this morning, and I was telling him, I was thinking about it while I was brushing my teeth, how nice it would be if I was in Portland, because I'd be up at 8 a.m. right now, and my day would be starting at a reasonable time.
Dude.
So
in Vegas, like you wake up, it's 9, and there's baseball being played. You're like, what? Like 11 a.m.? Oh. Yeah, dude. Like East Coast games start when you wake up. And and in Vegas, you go to the sports book, people are there, and they're gambling on it then.
Why?
It was crazy. And I don't know, but anything you want to watch, you got to race home. Because something that starts at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, which is most things, honestly, that's 5 Pacific. So they get off at 5. They have to race home to go see stuff. I don't know. It was weird. It was the time zone was a culture shock to me, but I couldn't even handle Eastern time when we were there for Greenville for 3 days. So anyway, all of that to say
Justin Lee, anti-time zone.
Yeah, I'm against it. Les, we'll pitch it to Les and some insightful stuff. What all did you guys kind of talk about? Can you briefly sell us on why we should keep listening?
We kind of went through my four talking points. We're kind of looking at last weekend for Oregon State. Looking at Jerpy and the pitching staff.
Looking at
Jerpy and the boys. That's
them. Yep. We learned about them.
Of course, the lineup. So we get a little in depth about that, and then just kind of this weekend and what are going to be some of the big factors. Maybe how much weather does play into that. And what Les thinks it'll come down to. So
awesome. Well, we'll send it to them. Adam, thanks so much, and we'll catch everyone down the road. Here's Adam and Les.
Hi everyone, I'm here with Les Gehrett, the sports editor for the Corvallis Gazette-Times in Corvallis, Oregon, where the Auburn Tigers will be this weekend for the Corvallis Super Regional in the NCAA tournament. And we're so happy to have Les with us here. Les, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Adam, thank you for inviting us to be part of this conversation.
Of course. No, I think this is, I know we were kind of talking about it, but I think this kind of gives a nice little angle or dynamic that, either of our readers maybe didn't get before, for sure. But I guess just kind of to jump right into it, I know we've talked a little bit and exchanged some stuff for a Q&A that you guys will be able to read in tomorrow's print for the Opelika-Auburn News. But just kind of going off some of that, the first place I wanted to start was last weekend's Corvallis Regional. I wanted to ask you just generally what some of your kind of bigger takeaways were from it in terms of just how Oregon State performed.
Oregon State players or coaches weren't especially thrilled with everything about that Corvallis Regional. They admitted to being a really nervous, jittery in their opening round game against New Mexico State. That could not have been a clearer example of one team playing with absolutely nothing to lose. New Mexico State comes into the tournament 24-32. If they hadn't won their conference tournament, they would not be here. Nobody's expecting them to advance out of the regional. But, they have some talented ball players. They have a very good pitcher who had a very strong outing. And they pushed the Beavers to extra innings on Friday night. And Oregon State was, in hockey terms, they were squeezing the stick a little tight on Friday night. They played better on Saturday in the win over San Diego, put 12 runs on the board there, had no problems in that game. Then on Sunday, Auburn, a team you folks are very familiar with, knocked San Diego out in the elimination game, and then came out and basically ran the Beavers off the field on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, Oregon State it was just not their night. They only scored one run. They lost 8-1. In no phase of the game did they play at the level that they were really happy with. And then on Monday, they gutted out a 7-6 win, and that game went down to the 9th inning. That regional didn't get decided until the 9th. The Beavers brought their ace back, Cooper Jerpy, who won Friday night's game. Well, he didn't get the win because it went to extra innings, but he pitched well on Friday night. Then they brought him back on Monday to pitch the 8th and the 9th. And with one out in the 9th, Vandy had a runner on first, and that big Spencer Jones fellow, who's a nightmare at the plate. And he was the most outstanding player of the regional. And Jerpy got him to on a tapper back to the mound, and that was basically it. They could breathe a sigh of relief after that. But that was, that regional went down to the wire. It was not clear sailing for the Beavers at all. They had to fight all the way through the whole thing.
Yeah, I know one thing we kind of talked about a bit was, you had mentioned in part of your kind of Q&A stuff that Auburn's kind of a run at the end of the year, or not really a run, I guess a bad stretch of games kind of, against Kentucky in the regular season, and then that SEC tournament loss, and obviously things kind of turned. It seemed like to an extent here on the Plains that was somewhat of a chance for them to reset, refocus, bit of a wake up call to a degree. Just like, I guess my question is the response, if there is one to anticipate or expect from Oregon State after having kind of a shaky regional. I mean, just how do you think that this Oregon State team will kind of, I guess, respond to that, considering they made it out and, have another chance?
They did. I think getting out of the regional definitely takes a little bit of the pressure off. At the same time, more or less the same dynamic is in play. They're the number 3 national seed. They spent a week sharing the top of the polls with Tennessee at one point late in the season. This is a team with extremely high expectations. So it will be interesting to see if they handle the nerves a little better. in the super regional than maybe they did in the regional. One thing, these guys care a bunch. They really want to bring another title back to Oregon State, and that's admirable. But it can sometimes lead you to press a little bit, and they pressed a little bit in the regional. And the main guy that maybe pressed a little bit was Jacob Melton, the Pac-12 Conference Player of the Year. He was 1 for 13 at the plate through the first 3 games of the regional, which that's as bad a stretch as he's had all season long. Now, he came through on Monday. He had a 2-run homer on Monday to help him get through that. So maybe that cleared things a little bit for him. He was definitely pressing a little bit in those early games of the regional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know you had mentioned to me kind of the bottom third of Oregon State's order, for lack of a less cliche term, stepping up to the plate. Of course, they quite literally did that, but just kind of their I guess, improvement maybe in the regional. I just wanted to ask too, kind of what you saw from that lineup beyond Melton last weekend.
Well, to start with the bottom third of the lineup, when we talked to the guys on the team about it, they were so happy for those guys to have that moment, and said that they've been working hard all season, that there have been times where they've hit some balls hard with nothing to show for it, and so it was nice to see that bottom third really come through, and they really did. They had an outstanding regional and really contributed. The top part of the Oregon State lineup, though, is really stacked. It's not just the Jacob Melton show at all. First baseman Garrett Forrester, teammates say he's the most professional hitter on the team. He never has a bad at bat. He doesn't chase. He's never unfocused. He has more walks than strikeouts on the season, which for a guy that hits with some power is really remarkable in this day and age. He's just a really good hitter. Justin Boyd, the right fielder, is having a great season. Wade Meckler, their left fielder, a scrappy little guy that's got a great story. To play at this level didn't come easy for him. He wasn't handed anything. He's had an outstanding year. And they've got a second baseman, a freshman from Australia, Travis Bizana, who's just incredibly athletic, fast, fun to watch, really good bat control. He doesn't play like a freshman. So they've got a ton of of weapons all up and down this lineup. And it sounds like to compete against Auburn, they're going to need every one of them. So.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Forrester kind of having that power element, but also that plate discipline. Because I know we talked a little bit about Sonny DeShera, but that's kind of, I think a lot of people obviously look at home runs and think that's the barometer for being a really successful hitter if they're not, maybe super well educated on baseball. But that's always the thing that sticks out to me about like DeShera, and that's what folks talk about too, is the fact that he's a strike zone evaluator, I guess, as Auburn's coach Butch Thompson would say. But I know he leads the team in walks. I don't know if he has more walks than strikeouts, but I know I think he's got 40 more walks than the next guy on Auburn's team this year. And so it's funny you mentioned that with Forrester, because that's certainly I would say a similarity on that.
Yeah,
front.
Forrester just doesn't have bad at bats.
Yeah,
obviously, hitting a baseball is not a 100% of the time sort of endeavor, but he does go up there and have the at bat he wants pretty nearly 100% of the time. And then the results, see what happens.
Yeah. You mentioned Jerpy coming back at the end of the Vanderbilt game.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about him. Of course, Golden Spikes Award, Dick Hauser Trophy finalist.
Yes.
What makes him as good as he's been this year?
Well, he's a lefty, which always adds just a little bit of spice. That thing is, the ball is never coming in on a straight line to you. Mm-hmm. It's always doing something. He's got a very good slider. When the slider is on, he can move through lineups pretty quickly. He led the team in strikeouts by a wide margin. I think he's got 155 strikeouts this year. Mm-hmm. He's a strikeout pitcher. But he's just really competitive and intelligent. And, and some days after the game, you'll go and ask him, what was working and what wasn't working. And he's like, I just couldn't find the slider today, mm-hmm. Which happens. So then he just has to find ways to compete with his fastball and his changeup and his off-speed pitches. But he just does that. He digs, and he just never gives in. He never gives in. This team last season, their season ended at the TCU Regional. They got knocked out by Dallas Baptist, and they got knocked out in a game in which kind of the pitching melted down. Mm-hmm. And it was a little bit of a summary of what the season had been like in walks and hit batters and wild pitches, and just Coach Mitch Canham just calls them free bases. And so he came into this season just on an absolute crusade against free bases. I think he said in one interview before the season started, he didn't even want his pitchers to get to three balls. Yeah. If you don't get to 3 balls, then you can't get to 4. And to a great extent, they've done that this season. And Cooper has really taken that on. Just doesn't want to give in. Doesn't want to walk a guy. And the team has done much better at that. And honestly, at the moments where things have gone a little bit sideways here and there throughout the season, as they will, it's those free bases, the walks, the hit batters, the wild pitches. Those just the baseball gods make you pay for those.
Yeah. I know one thing too that you had kind of mentioned about being a factor this weekend for, I guess really both teams is the bullpen and things maybe coming down to that. Just beyond Jerpy and kind of, I guess, really looking at Oregon State's bullpen, and just what stands out about that unit to you?
They've got a lot of arms. They've got a lot of arms. For long relief, they're likely to turn first to Brock Townsend. He had a good outing at the regional, the Corvallis Regional, and then they got 3 or 4 other guys that they just really trust in high leverage situations. Reed Sebi, Ben Ferrer, and then they've been closing most of the year with Ryan Brown, a freshman. But I'm not sure that in a really high leverage situation, it might be Sebi or Ferrer that they bring in, depending on the situation. Those guys have really come through all season long and delivered out of the pen. And then they've got other arms that they throw that have had some success, but that's the core group of relievers. And this super regional is a little bit less of a bullpen stress test than a regional is. Mm-hmm. A regional, if you lose a game, 4 games in 3 or 4 days, is just a lot of baseball and a big test on your arms. So I'll be curious to see if they get into the pen, if Mitch shortens that list a little bit and goes straight to those high leverage guys, or who he goes to in those situations. Yeah.
Was there any surprise at all when you saw Jerpy come out of the bullpen against Vanderbilt in that last game?
No, not really. As we all have come to learn over the years, pitchers have those bullpen days that they come out and throw after their start. Monday would have been his bullpen day. He told Mitch before the game that he was good to go. We asked him about it. His bullpen day, he typically throws about 20 pitches. I don't think he exceeded that by a whole lot on Monday. He exceeded it by some. I mean, he struck out 5 of the 6 outs were by strikeouts. So he's obviously pushing it. But no, not at all surprised. And his competitiveness and desire to have the ball, absolutely no surprise that he wanted to be the guy with the ball in his hand in the 8th and 9th against Vandy. And they needed him. One more big hit, and who knows how that regional turns out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I guess just kind of pivoting to this weekend, I know one thing that you'd kind of talked about too was the conditions. I know Butch Thompson and some of the guys who talked yesterday before Auburn left for Corvallis got kind of asked about the conditions. I'm curious if you've seen situations where, and I'm assuming it would be non-conference teams coming in to Corvallis and playing in those conditions, but have you seen situations where the conditions in the Pacific Northwest have kind of had what seems like a pretty apparent impact on visiting teams?
That's a really good question. Nobody's ever going to say it.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to say it. But the truth is, we sometimes in Corvallis play baseball on days that are not meant for baseball.
Yeah.
And your fans might see that on Saturday night and on Sunday night. You might be looking at this going, what in the heck are we doing? We would literally never play baseball in this kind of weather. And you're right. You probably wouldn't play baseball in that kind of weather. Here, when the forecast calls for rain for the next 3 days, they just kind of push through and they play in weather you wouldn't think they would play baseball in. It's obviously a first-class all-turf field. Right. There's no water buildup, so that's not it. It's just a question of physically playing baseball when it's not a drizzle. I mean, it's just flat out raining, and sometimes it's raining hard and then they push through it. And obviously different umpiring crews will make different decisions. We had one game, I believe it was against rival Oregon this season, where we had a game get delayed an hour for first pitch. And then we had a mid-game rain delay. And we were after midnight and finishing that game up in cold, wet rain. That was a long night, and heaven help us, but we may have to do that again on Saturday. And so, because they're going to get this in, right? And so it might not be terribly pleasant. We're not thrilled with it. It's not always. This has been a wetter than usual spring. There's no question. May was much wetter than a year ago, and we are now into June, and they're just calling for a lot of rain this weekend. Okay. Yeah. Definitely a factor, and it definitely, obviously, the ball is just not going to carry in cold, wet air the same way it's going to carry on a hot summer afternoon. It's just not going to carry the same way. So we'll see how that impacts teams.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of everything I had. Question wise, I guess really the last thing that I kind of wanted to ask, and I totally understand too if it's not I don't know. I know some folks aren't big on making straight up predictions of like what'll happen this weekend. But I just wanted to ask, do you have a hardline prediction for this weekend, whether it's, one team winning in 3 games or the other winning in 2, or if not that, any predictions just about things that might happen this weekend?
I think these are two very good ball clubs. I think you could probably expect it would go to a third day. And in my experience in these sorts of tournament settings is that at the end of the day, if somebody can get outs out of their bullpen late in the game, that's gonna decide it. And then if you can't get outs in those high leverage situations at the end of the game, then that's gonna do it. I really think it's gonna come down to which of both of these teams can hit. Clearly, both of these teams can really hit the baseball. And if the starters do their jobs, then we'll just see, coming down the stretch of these games, which bullpen can hold up under the pressure and close things out. I have no idea. What I believe Yogi Berra said, making predictions is hard, especially about the future. So we'll just we'll sit back and see what happens. This team wants it bad. Oregon State wants it bad. We'll see. That didn't necessarily serve them well in the regional, and we'll maybe see if they handle the pressure a little better in the super regional.
Yeah, that's an interesting. It's funny because on paper, the concept of a team wanting it bad, it's not necessarily, it's expected if anything, but I know that one thing that like Butch Thompson's talked about all year is it's kind of, it's almost a broken record at this point, is just talks so much about like process, and it's less so about like, he kind of alluded to it at the end of the regional last weekend, and was very much like, he's like, my player's job is to really only look one pitch ahead, and
Yes.
I'm, me and the coaching staff are really the only ones who shouldn't be looking, or should be looking, much more than a pitch beyond. And so it's, I've yet to see, I would be curious to see if that happened to Auburn at all this weekend, but I've yet to really see them press incredibly hard in any situation, except for maybe that run at the end of the regular season where they weren't doing that well. Cause that was the talk of it when they got asked what happened. It was just like, the swings were getting a little too big and they were trying a little too hard. So, it sounds like it'll be a weekend of teams that are kind of, assuming Auburn can keep it up, pretty dialed in.
Clearly, whatever you guys are putting on your Wheaties in the morning is working. I mean, that offensive performance in that regional is just astounding. UCLA is a good. I don't know much about your other two opponents. UCLA is a good baseball team.
Yeah,
that's a good club, and so if you beat them, you're playing good baseball.
Yeah, well, sweet. Well, yeah, Les, I think it's really all I have for you. I guess kind of signing off from here. I'm Adam Cole. You can follow me on Twitter at Cole Reporter, and I'm joined by Les Gehrett of the Corvallis Gazette-Times. Les, do you have a Twitter account that we can plug, or?
You can follow along at I think Corvallis Gazette-Times, just our basic news feed Twitter. We post some stuff, but yeah, thank you very much for having us. It was fun talking baseball.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. It was a good time.
And if your fans are on their way, pack their wool socks and some gloves.
There you go.
They're gonna need them.
Sweet.
All right.